day 159 of Brittney Griner's detention in Russia. The WNBA star, an Olympic gold medalist, was back in court on Tuesday. She arrived holding pictures, two of them, one of her wife, Sherelle, and the other of her teammates, who she called her best friends. During Tuesday's session, Griner's legal team continued to present evidence and testimony regarding her possession of a vape cartridge containing cannabis oil, this time focusing on the medicinal use of cannabis by athletes all around the globe. The doctor testified that cannabis was widely used to treat athletes' sports injuries where it is legal. Her defense also presented the results of a drug test Griner took upon her detention that came back negative, with the doctor saying that suggests Griner didn't use cannabis regularly, as traces of the drug would likely be found in frequent users for up to a month after use. Ultimately, Griner's legal team appears to be walking a very fine line, highlighting the medicinal use of cannabis in the world of sports while also maintaining that Griner brought the drug into Russia by complete accident.
We are not arguing that Brittney took it here as a medicine. We are still saying that she involuntarily brought it here because she was in a rush, as she said, packing, and this medication, she just forgot to take it out of her luggage. That's it. But the Russian public has to know, and the Russian court in the first place has to know, that it was not used for recreational purposes in the United States. It was prescribed by a doctor and used in accordant way.
U.S. officials inside of Russia said Griner confirms that she is doing okay and she's expected to testify for the very first time on Wednesday. It's unclear how long her trial will last, but the court has authorized her detention until December the 20th. The slow-moving nature of her trial, plus her already 5-month-long detention, has ramped up pressure on the Biden administration to do a lot more to get her out of there. And that's not just coming from Griner's family or athletes or even political figures. It's also coming from people who have been in her exact same position, her shoes. Trevor Reed, a former Marine, spent more than 2 years in a Russian jail before he was released in a prisoner swap back in April. He told NBC's Hallie Jackson that the U.S. could be doing more to free both Griner and American Paul Whelan.
I can't say 100% what the White House is or is not doing. That's obviously not public information, but in my opinion, the White House has the ability to get them out extremely fast, and they clearly have chosen not to do that. So no, in my opinion, they're not doing enough.
So great to see his face, given that we had his parents on the show a while back. Joining us now and starting us off, Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. Her district includes much of Houston, which is where Griner is from. It's her hometown. Congresswoman, first of all, thank you so much for joining today. Oh, I think you're on mute. I'm unable to hear you, Congresswoman.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, perfection. Thank you so much for being here. Do you still have faith that the Biden administration is going to be able to bring Brittney Griner home safely?
Well, thank you again. My faith is mixed with outrage. My faith is that I've always emphasized that the nation is sovereign and that every citizen should have the power of the most powerful nation behind them. And that means the United States. I know that they can do what Trevor Reed just said, is to get both Brittney, BG, out now, and as well Paul Whelan. And I think today is an example of how the Russians are really playing games. They're talking about detaining her until December. If you do believe in justice and you believe in facts and you believe in a defense, her defense have made it very clear. It was a mistake. And it was an infinitesimal amount anyhow. But this is tied to the Russian war in Ukraine. It is tied to the embarrassment that Russia experienced at the Olympics when they were charged with doping. And so here's an innocent person coming to play basketball as she's done for 7 years. And all of a sudden she's in the claws of this unjust legal system. And I hope everyone can see your video. She is in a cage. and she is in a cage when she is brought to the court. How often does that happen? So what we are pushing and what we are hearing is that the negotiations are going full speed ahead. It's only Russia that has to make the decision and to move forward.
I'm so glad that you brought up the point about Russian doping in the Olympics, because I think it speaks to some of the hypocrisy here, where they're acting aghast at a small amount of cannabis oil when Brittany Griner herself, per the evidence presented in court this week, tested negative when they did actually test her for cannabis. Can you talk a bit more about some of the hypocrisy here and how urgent that makes it for the Biden administration to be aggressive here in trying to get her home?
Urgent beyond urgency, if you will. I introduced the legislation which was signed by the former president of the anti-doping provisions to block Olympians and countries from using doping at the Olympics. It came about through a Russian scientist who became a whistleblower, and I wrote the legislation and it was signed into law. And so in essence, what happened at the Olympics was a violation of United States law and also international law. And the Russians were caught red-handed on some of their prize Olympians, their ice skaters, and they value the Olympic and the gold medals that they would have received from those Olympians. But because one was disqualified, I can assure you there was chagrin and embarrassment, but they brought it on themselves. Interestingly enough, maybe less than 7 days, Brittany Griner was innocently coming back to do what she's done, as I said, for 7 years, play ball and give joy to the American people and make their team, the Russian people, and make their team a winner. And what typically, as a member of the Homeland Security Committee, I know that in airports, there are opportunities to confiscate what you have, if it is of minute amount of whatever it may be, food, and send you on your way, meaning she could have been immediately deported or sent back to the United States at that point, or they could have opted to send her on to her destination. They did none of that because the word went up to Vladimir Putin. I know that we've got a prize here, an American Olympian, a renowned basketball player with enormous skills and prestige, and we've got a plum to match along the side of our ill-fated war against Ukraine, because on February the 24th, I was in Lithuania as the troops went into Ukraine, even though we thought that they were going to stand down. So they had all kinds of measures to be able to punish the West. BG, Paul Whelan should have come out, and of course, they had this horrific war against Ukraine. We need to understand this is games. Russia needs to stop playing games, and the American people need to shove forward with the president using all means to get BG out and Paul Whelan. There are other hostages around the world that I feel for, and I just want to now, knowing about this occurrence even more, we need to push to bring our Americans home wherever they are.
How much do you fear the risk of this being drawn out, an exorbitant amount of time because of the point you just made, that there is an ongoing hot war happening between Russia and Ukraine after their invasion?
Well, Zelena, I do want to say this, that the actual negotiators, the hostage negotiator who's been designated, and his team, I feel their passion, frustration, and their desire to quickly get this over with. That's why I started out by saying I have outrage and faith. But I do think with the pressure of the American people, the pressure of the NFL, the NBA, the WNBA, the soccer league, the MLB, I'm really calling on the music industry. I'm really calling on American voices to be raised so that the pressure is felt that we're not inattentive, that we're attentive, that there should be the shoving that is necessary, the tools that should be given, and the massive force of saying to Russia, enough is enough. We want them home now, and take the deal. Take the negotiations that are going on and not continue to drag them out, because there is no due process. There is no justice. And I can't suffer one more moment thinking. My suffering is only thinking about her in a cage when she comes back and forth to court, Americans don't even comprehend. You're sitting as a defendant at a table and a cage when you're in the courtroom, inattentive medical care, which doesn't exist, and food that is enough to kill you. We appreciate her spirit. It has been held up. She's holding up, maybe holding on. But right now, we've got to put a demand in, stop negotiating with false motives, Russia, and negotiate so that the deal can be made to bring them home. That's the pressure that needs to be put on Russia, but it needs to be put so our negotiators can feel that the American people are knowing about this as symbols of what can happen to Americans if we don't show the attentiveness that we are. I know the hostages have the passion. We've got to give the push so they can get the job done.
Get the job done. Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, thank you so much for starting us off today. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.